afternoon. I'd like to take some time today to give an update on the passport situation. Then I would be happy to take your questions. First, I think it is important to recognize that for decades, the process of applying for and receiving a passport in Canada was one of the most seamless and predictable government services there was. The Government of Canada set a very high standard in getting citizens this critical document in a simple and timely way. Service Canada nearly doubled the operational workforce from 1,365 employees in March to 2,639 in December. It expanded access to service for Canadians to more offices. It added processing capacity and streamlined operations. Staff worked thousands of hours of overtime, processing applications, printing passports, and helping Canadians directly on evenings, weekends, and on holidays. Special attention was paid to make sure Canadians with an urgent need were served in time for their travel. And these efforts paid dividends, restabilizing the program by the fall. As of October 3rd, Service Canada began to once again deliver within the service standards for well beyond 90% of new applications. However, there were still thousands of Canadians who applied well before that time who were forced to wait. Some of those Canadians may even just be receiving their passports now, despite having applied as early as the summer. I have seen these cases in my own office, as have my colleagues and MPs from all parties. To those Canadians and others who have shown such admirable patience during this difficult situation, I once again apologize. Since its peak in June 2022, after dedicating resources to ensure these Canadians receive their passports, approximately 98% of the backlog of applications have been processed. The backlog is virtually eliminated. The number of applications that remain are there for many possible reasons, and not every application results in a passport being issued. Some cases may have other complex issues to resolve, such as matters of child custody, eligibility, or integrity matters. Service Canada has assessed all of these complex files and is working diligently to complete the review and identify the appropriate outcome while ensuring passport integrity. The efforts and resources that have been deployed over the past year are now focused on maintaining service standards and anticipating growth in application volumes. The first wave of passports with 10-year validity were issued in July of 2013. Service Canada is now well positioned to handle the 2023 influx of renewals and beyond. As was the case prior to the pandemic, there are going to be seasonal peaks, which might mean there are lineups at offices sometimes. With March break and summer quickly approaching, there is no time like the present to apply, so our Service Canada staff can serve you as quickly as possible and help get you on your way to your destination. I'd be happy to take your questions.
Mr. Gould, the situation with the passports, I think, has been one of the principal parts of the argument that Mr. Poilievre has used to make the point that Canada is broken. And I wonder how you feel that part of your file has become sort of the edge of the spear for one of the key political attacks against your government.
Well, look, what I would say is that when we were going through the pandemic, everything changed. Right? We knew that we were going to be opening up again. We knew that Canadians would want to travel, but that happened very quickly, and we saw a huge influx of demand. And what I would say is that I've had the opportunity to travel right across this country. I've been to dozens of Service Canada offices and spoken with dozens and hundreds of employees who work on the front lines. And what I have come to see for each and every one of them is their commitment to service and their desire to help Canadians. And so if there's something that I have seen across this country is that those frontline Service Canada officers have done everything they can to respond to Canadians in a difficult and challenging time and have worked so hard to make sure that Canadians can access their passport and go traveling. And what I would say is that in the past year, we have moved heaven and earth to make sure that this system is working for Canadians. And, you know, I'm here to say today that it is, and Canadians can apply with confidence.
Do you have to convince Canadians, though, that Canada isn't broken?
I think Canadians see the country that we live in, and they see what's happening in other countries around the world. And while, we can always strive to do better, and there's always things that we need to work on as a country, that's part of living in a democracy, that's part of living in a society, they also see the challenges that many other countries around the world are facing. And while, we're going to keep working hard to make sure that we improve service delivery, we improve a whole range of issues in Canada, ultimately they know that there is something special about this country, that we have a lot to be proud of. We're going to keep working on it, but I think Canadians know that fundamentally.
Amy Rabson from the Canadian Press. I'm wondering how long these extra staffers will have to be there. Is this going to be a permanent thing, or when that's going to ramp down? And if you could give us an idea of what the extra costs have been to manage this over the last 6 months.
So first of all, the passport program runs on a dedicated fund because it kind of pays for itself through the fees for passports. So it's not something that really draws on the fiscal framework. So we haven't had to ask for additional resources because we have the revolving fund for passports. These additional staff are there for the foreseeable future, because we have increased demand. So, for example, we're on track to deliver just over 3, maybe 3.5 million passports by the end of this fiscal year. That's well over double what we would have done in the previous year. And for the next couple of years, we're looking at between 3 and 5 million passport applications for the next couple of years. So we know that we need to have this increased capacity based on kind of those natural cycles of when passport applications are made. And as I mentioned in my remarks, this July is the first year of the 10-year renewal. So we know that there's going to be an increased demand. One of the things that I will say, though, is unlike what happened in the spring and summer of last year, we're anticipating more renewals. One of the big differences for last spring and summer is that we had about 80 to 85% of applications were for new passports, so first-time passport holders, which are more complex, whereas what we're anticipating, particularly for this summer, is a higher level of renewals, and those are much simpler to do.
Taria Esri, Global News. What do you say to Canadians who are out money from delays you described as unacceptable because of canceled vacations? What recourse do they have, if any?
Well, so first of all, when it comes to passports, we always recommend Canadians apply well in advance. And I would still encourage people to make sure that if they have travel coming up, to check to make sure that they do have a valid passport. Of course, even in that situation, as much as we try to make sure that everybody gets their passport on time, and the majority of the time we are able to, sometimes there are extenuating circumstances. As I mentioned, not every application is going to result in a passport because there may be documents that are missing, there may be integrity issues, there may be security challenges. However, what I would say is that where we are today is that we are delivering between 95 and 98% of the time within those service standards. And so Canadians can have confidence that they should be able to get their passport on time so long as everything is correct with their application. Thank you. Thank you.